the long
live streaming is on.
Hey everybody, welcome to the what is this, June meeting of the June 2021 meeting of the Baton Rouge Astronomical Society. Tonight we are going to be working on how to clean a Schmidt Cassegrain reflecting type telescope, which you'll see there are catadioptric. It's I think to technically be more correct. This was a wonderful donation that we received a couple of months ago, probably a year ago by now. We thought, well, this is a really great telescope. It's on a dual fork mount. This would be great for outreach and things like that. But the one problem is there seems to be a lot of mildew on the inside of the lens, which is kind of hard to see. I'll see if I can drag the camera around so you can take a look at it, which probably not. Yeah, you can see right there all these little spots. The original thought was, well, this is an easy fix. We haven't actually done a program where we have shown how to clean a lens before. We've done plenty of programs on how to clean mirrors and things like that. But cleaning the lens is somewhat different because soap will leave a little residue. And actually, you can tell somebody tried to clean this before because that residue is still on the outside of the telescope. So we've got some cleaning solution here, and I've never actually cleaned the mildew out the inside of one. I've never seen one this bad, but we think the principle is going to be the same. So hopefully, bear with us and we'll see if it gets to work. And at the very least, a 9 1/4 is a very nice size telescope, and this should do really well for outreach.
How critical is it if we do get scratches? I can see through a tree basically.
Yeah, it's one of those things is that the more scratches you get, the more problems you're going to have with the scope, but you can actually have a little bit of damage and a lot of dirt before you have to clean it. And mind you, generally the saying is that until something's actually growing on your lens, you don't need to clean it. Well, that's mildew. That's growing on the lens, so we need to clean it. But you can actually still see a lot. You don't really want to clean these things that often. There are some people that like to clean their scopes every day, like their glasses. They feel that the tiniest little smudge really offsets the view, and they just feel it in their bones. And of course, if you're doing photography, yeah, you see every little nick and scratch. I mean, there are ways to fix that, but ultimately, you're subtracting data that you're collecting when you're actually using flats to remove that image. So you'd rather just have a clean image. So generally speaking, it's a matter of opinion on how much you have to do. But at some point, you are going to need to clean your optics, and it's just like a good thing to know how to do. And that's why we're going to try and go through the part of this tonight. Now, the easy thing to do is just to clean the mirror itself. The more tricky is when you talk about actually cleaning the inside of one of these guys, because you have to be very careful when you remove the lens itself, because the orientation of the lens is going to be extremely critical. If you put it in the wrong way, it's never going to work quite the same way again. And so we're going to talk about things you can do to make it sure that you can put the lens back on the same way you took it off. And hopefully we'll get it right. And if not, I guess we've just lost a mildew donation scoop. And we'll cry about it.
You're not going to like to hear this, but if it's bad enough, it etches into the glass.
And if it's super bad and it etches into the glass, then this is going to become a training scoop on how to clean optics. And well, if it's really bad, we'll turn it into a solar scoop.
Or why don't we just see what happens when you hit with a hammer?
Yeah, and then yeah, we may do that. There used to be an old David Letterman thing, as will it bounce or something, or will it float? But
that could be a whole special program.
We'll go take it to the bridge, and we'll throw it off. We'll see if it floats. Actually, this is a great one, and now my curiosity is piqued, and I think to myself, it will probably float. This guy is actually pretty airtight. Once you get all the screws in. But anyway, we'll move on pretty quickly, and we're going to try and jump right into the program, and then when we get done with the program, we've got a little bit of business. There are AL elections coming up, so we probably need to discuss who we want to vote for the AL. and Stephen has some stuff that he wants to redo or restart up our efforts to get the AL convention in Baton Rouge. So he's going to speak about that briefly. And then normally we'd have Ben talking about something, but Ben's on the lam, I think. I don't know. This is just alleged, complete hearsay. Whether or not he's running from the cops is anybody's guess, really. That's just what I hear. And then we'll talk to Chris about what's happening at the observatory and things coming up. But I happen to know that the upcoming outreaches are there's one this Friday and there's two coming up next week, over 2 weeks from now, I believe. And I can check the dates on that, so we've got that covered. He can take the week off to do his thing as. All right, so let's go ahead and start on this guy here. Now, I don't know if you're actually going to be able to see. But in order to get at the mirror, what we're going to do is, instead of taking off this entire thing here, which involves a whole ton of screws, there and there and there and there and there, and actually there are collimation screws for the corrector plate itself on top that you never want to touch. What we're going to do is we're going to take off this inner ring here, pull it out, and then move the entire mirror from the housing and clean it separate from that, and then put it back on. There's also a mirror inside this guy that we could add to the entire what we want to clean, but that involves a whole heck of a lot more work. And going back to the comment that we made earlier, you don't want to have to clean the mirror unless you absolutely have to, and we think we can get away with it. There are some tiny little mildew spots on it, but in order to clean the mirror, you have to actually remove the interior baffle tube, unscrew it, and then pull the entire thing out. So basically, you have to take the entire assembly apart, which I don't want to do, and we certainly don't have enough time to do here. So I'm going to get Coy to help me here when we actually get going on this. But I've taken the liberty of removing most of the screws already. We've got one screw left here at the top. So to help facilitate us with the alignment, I've got some regular old painter's tape here. What we're going to do is we're going to mark the top of the paint, the top of the scope here, like that, and like that. Simple enough. And then we're going to take our handy dandy pocket knife. We're going to cut a slit between the tape that we put on the top and the top tape we put on the bottom. So when we go in and line the scope tape back up, we're just going to mark this guy completely on that same tape. So having done that, I'm going to sit around and remove the final screw. And I'll pull this guy out. Here. All right.
Do you have anything soft we can lay that on?
We should.
I might have something in the car.
Actually, this guy is probably, it's an older model scope, so I think that the stuff is actually, yeah, he's stuck on there pretty good. Which is
there's, on mine, I don't know how this one's built, but on the one I have, when I took it apart, there's a gasket around there and it sticks.
Yeah, there's like a little bit of cardboard inside here like that. So I may pick out one.
Yeah, the cardboard's really brittle.
Yeah.
If it's old enough.
Definitely old enough.
You like to hold the light for it.
Yeah.
Well,
See? So this guy might actually be a different design than the one I was thinking.
Almost until.
Yeah, the problem is the newer ones are a lot easier to get off of, but they definitely don't want you to take the lens off, the corrector plate off of this guy because he's a real pain. The problem is we absolutely have to do it. That guy. What we could do at this point, we're going to clean the lens so we can actually just. Yeah, this guy's. We're probably going to have to remove the entire front piece. So to just add this guy. Which is not something we want to do, especially because it's only 2 screws there. Yeah, I think what we're going to end up doing is this is going to have to be a side project for a couple of skilled people after the thing, and we're just going to clean the front piece today to show you how I clean the front piece, which is not what I wanted to do, and it's going to necessitate us coming back and cleaning it again. But this is live TV, folks. This is what happens. All right, so to start off, what we're going to need here is we've got our basic tools here. We've got brush, we've got cleaning pads. We have some cleaning solution that is specially made, which I actually have a good formula for, and it's great, makes for really great chemistry experiments that involves distilled water, photochromic fluid, Kodak photo fluid, Windex, and gosh, I think there's alcohol, 100% isopropyl alcohol, to make for something that cleans very cleanly and very dryly. We'll put up the link on how to make this somewhere online when we get done with the experiment or the cleaning tonight, which is definitely going to be a bit of an experiment. So to start with, what we're going to do, we take our handy dandy bulb blower, the same thing that we have from everything else, we blow the thing down. Get as much loose dust as you can. Second thing to do, you can get a really nice brush. Here, simple, gosh, I cannot remember the exact type of brush that you're using here, but it's basically a soft touch brush that's not going to mar any of the thing to itself. You take it, simple, direct motions in a straight line going across one way, then moving and going in a crosshatch going direction, going the other way across.
It's clean, it's just stained.
Yeah, we've decided we're going to have to, we can't get it off because the thing is glued on, so we're going to have to remove the entire front. And we didn't want to do that in the half.
You're talking about heart surgery.
Yeah, we're talking about very, and at this point, we're just going to say the hell with it, and we're going to clean the mirror too. Just
by the way, I was going to tell you, if all else fails, Company 7 refurbishes telescopes and guarantees they'll be better operating than when we take out them.
Oh, beautiful. And in that case, they may be getting a call from us pretty soon.
Who's that? Company 7. They've been around for years. They're on the New Jersey or something.
These are some really nice silk wipes, that synthetic blend wipes that are supposedly really good for this particular type of thing. What we're going to do here now, and mind you, I've also brought in a headlamp just because I don't like holding a flashlight for long periods of time. And it really, I find that actually having to reflect the light, you can see better the streaks that you're creating on the lamp itself. Generally, what we're going to do now is we're moving on to the part where we're going to add the solution. We're going to clean the outside. What we're going to do is we're going to start in the top right corner, and we're going to move and quarter this guy into 4 little sections. We're going to clean each section in turn, move on to the next one, the next one, the next one, until we've done the complete thing. Then we're going to go through and we're going to buff the entire lens. At that point, we've cleaned all the dirt out, so you can sit around and buff the scratches. And now we'll give it the smell test. We've got a secondary cleaning solution for just removing streaks and things like that, which I've never found the need to use. And actually, I've never actually enjoyed using it either. I've tried it once, it was not necessary. So start off, what we're going to do, we're going to take our pad, we're going to fold it into quarters like this, grab our cleaning solution, we're going to spray, and instead of actually wiping, we're going to dampen the cloth down like that. We're just going to dab it. Get done with that. Start with the next one. Inundate it. Dab it. Cover over the entire thing so it's a nice wet mixture. Not dripping, but definitely wet. Then throw that down, grab another clean sheet, fold them into fourths. You're going to go in a solid motion from the inside straight up, using one clean sheet per man to move it like that. And I kind of cheat by folding it in like that so I can get 4 from each one. The thing here is you're going to want to move quickly because the solution that you've got on there will dry pretty quick. Don't be afraid to throw a bunch of these towels away. I think one recommendation was something like 4 or 5 sheets for every inch of aperture. And this is a good 9-inch, so we've got a lot to look at here. Once you've done a complete quarter, go through, scan really well for pieces that you missed. And actually, if anybody wants to come up and look at it in the light, I'll show you exactly what that is done.
Before you take that off, should you put the screws back in?
It's glued. The screws aren't coming anywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I probably should screw this
Just at least a
back
couple
in.
of them, but in this case, that plate slips loose somehow.
Yeah, it just
You can always take them off after you take it.
well, that's one way to get it off. But I'll take one screw and put it back
I'm
on.
sorry, I'm just very cautious about optics.
No, you're completely right about that.
Even though it didn't cost us anything, it's still a nice telescope.
It is, and we shouldn't be. Let me see if I can actually get on camera what we've done so far. There was a tiny little, see, there's still a little bit of soap scum right there. I suppose I should have actually looked at the screen. Little spots on the outside, and you're seeing a bunch of spots from the inside still because we haven't been able to get at the inside. All right, and I suppose I'll take a picture to put on the website just so we that's it. The 1 quarter is now done. We move on to the next quarter. Same thing. Bunch of spray. Pat it down.
Need to be elected.
Yeah, to do this online. Well, I mean, I put y'all on the actual the wrong side of the observatory. If I put y'all on the other side, this would have been fine. I wouldn't have to keep turning my back to y'all like this.
I just got one thing, maybe talk about after you finish all 4 quadrants is, like after a night of observing, especially since we're entering the summer months and humidity is going to be, the front of these do up pretty good. Go through the steps of what to do after a night of observing where they fog up and gets really wet. I mean, most people do heaters.
If you're getting to do the first thing I would add is a heat strip.
Yeah.
Just
a little bit of heat.
Yeah. So the first thing to do is you add the
Douche shield.
the dew shield, because the dew shield will double as a light shield. So you'll start to avoid some of the secondary.
But our dew is so heavy sometimes as you get later in the night. The dew shield on my tin would last an hour.
Yeah, the dew shield is a great thing, but you need to stop with the dew shield and move on to something else. The worst thing that I've noticed is that, especially down here, if you don't have a dew heater going on, once the scope is completely dewed over, especially at our dark sky site, which is on a dirt road, and it will collect dust, and any of the dust that's in the air will get trapped by the water, and so you've ended up with a dirty scope, which is pretty much why everybody loves to be on concrete or in a grass field and not next to a dirt road. But that having been the case, it's not actually so bad to clean every once in a while. But if you've got the dew heater strips, that'll keep that down a lot. So the first tip to prevention is, of course, get the the dew shield, but I definitely think that it's okay and a good idea to do the dew heater strips with the dew shield.
Do they still sell those things you can put in the back of the telescope? They absorb moisture that's inside the scope. They used to advertise this kind of telescope, but I can't think what they were called.
Desiccant tabs?
It was just a gel pack, you know, like you would use for.
Yeah, and that's the easiest thing. And mind you, this is the same thing I do with all of my lenses, is I throw a little, one of those gel packs that you get from cameras or anything. Anytime you buy electronics, they'll come with a little gel pack, and I buy a bunch of those and I throw them in there with my eyepieces.
This is a lot bigger than that, and they can be reused. You put them in the oven, you heat them up, and drive the moisture back out.
And yeah, I'm tempted to leave this last quadrant dirty so that you can actually see the last little bit that is getting cleaned off, but you wouldn't be able to see it on camera.
That's one reason I went to a refractor, because I keep
You
the
wanna open
tube
that up?
sealed, and it might be a triplet. But Tech said they used the best vodka between those lenses. You know who I'm talking about, huh? Yuri? I can't do his last name, but it's Yuri, I believe. And because I said, living in Louisiana, if you have airspace, I'm going to get moisture between those lenses. That's why I'm looking at the oil space.
Yeah, the latest thing is that the nitrogen purged and all that.
I just can't afford it. Let me figure it out. Wonderful. They make a 10-inch now. Got about 20,000.
All right. So clean, even strokes. And once the dirt is off, then it becomes a lot easier. You know, like
already. Like it's,
the what?
I can tell a big difference.
Yeah, and mind you, this has been a lot easier to see. The difference had been stellar if we'd actually been able to remove the inside.
What type of liquid? Is it just for telescopes, or are you using something else?
This is, and mind you, I've completed now, so I'm just going through and buffing the entire thing. There's no more dirt on the actual lens, so I can get away with this without scratching it. And then as a last little bit, you just give it the old breath test. You can start
It
to
looks
see
like
that.
it's cleaned the lens beautifully.
You can absolutely see the difference.
Yeah.
Film is not there anymore.
Yeah, and this is like I said, somebody used a soap to clean this at some point, and this is the lens cleaner solution will do this for the scope. Now, the benefit of using this is this method will work with all types of lenses. So your actual basic type lenses, or your glasses, or your telescopes
I'm gonna
itself.
turn the light off.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Thank you.
Beg pardon. Yeah, it's really easy to forget that it's on, especially when you're in the inside. I'm very sorry. I'm very lucky that you've got your sunglasses on. So, yeah. But this here, and just to give you the final tour as close up as I can, you can see.
Switch those other spots one thing.
Yeah, and the inside spots are just the problem, and that was what I was hoping to clean tonight, but we're going to have to do this the hard way. And like I said, if somebody else wants to come and sit up here and talk for a little while I just go nuts and take the thing apart, we can do that. But basically, there's a tiny little bit of glue between this cowling here and the lens, and I think the only way to get it off is going to be to either apply a bunch of pressure or to actually go through and cut it. And I was starting to try and wedge the thing off, and I started to hear a crack, and I thought, well, now you
Call up Bob. He used to have several corrector plates. If you have any trouble, maybe he'll do a phone conference for you.
Okay, I'll talk to you about that afterwards. But yeah, essentially, it seems intimidating to clean these guys, but it's not even as bad as the Newtonians. Supposedly, when you get to be the really bad cases, you end up having to take the corrector plate off, and you treat it the same way as you do as the Newtonian. Soak it, run the water on it, do the cotton towels, remove all the heavy dirt and grime on it if you got it really bad, and then you come back and do this as a finishing move to polish up the glass or remove the soap residue.
If you keep you see how it has the reducer on the back?
Yeah. That makes for a nice tight set.
6.3.
Yeah.
But it seals, I did that on my 10. I put one back there.
Yeah, basically it'll seal
And
up so
it
that,
literally seals the inside of the tube at that point.
yeah, and nothing's gonna get in there.
The only problem with the greases themselves on the old scopes will slowly evaporate and leave a film on the inside plate.
Yeah, and that's probably something,
new
well, no,
greases-
this is, the builder, I think, is probably just because
I don't
they
think the
peel up
new
the back.
greases are as bad as the older ones.
I know that when I was researching on how to remove the mirror on these guys, the grease becomes a real big issue because the screw that runs the length of the mirror is pretty thick and greasy. So that's kind of hard to get off.
Okay.
Now, the only other thing I'd say is, and you tell me if it's true about these.
But to
C14,
hold on, to go back to something Corey was saying earlier, if you come back in from a night of observing and your scope is covered into, the thing to do is, and that happens out here all the time, and when we're close enough in the night, I usually do this, you want the dew to evaporate in an even manner. So what I tend to do is I open the scope up, and I will leave it basically on the clutch, standing completely down with a little bit of air to come in and convect around it. So as it dries up, any dew droplets that form are going to drop straight down, and they're not going to actually collect or run on the telescope. And this works on binoculars, works on your SCTs or your refractors, or your
And be able to open and down.
and your reflectors if you want to stand the tube on it. Generally, if you've got a big enough scope and you have to set it on the ground, give it a little bit of an edge on one side, prop it up on one side just so that it's not completely sealed up and you can get some convection into there.
The Celestron, I'm assuming needs to, there's an etching somewhere. We could never find it on the C14. But
Like this guy.
when you take it off, there's supposed to be an etch mark. Like we've marked it with the painter's tape, and that's great, but a fail-safe, if there's an etching there to use as a reference point to align with the record plate.
And generally, what the thing that we would do here is after we pull the corrector plate, this ring would want to match up to the tape that we put on top of it. And then what I would then do is I would take a Sharpie and mark the inside of the tape and down and actually mark on the mirror itself underneath, which is going to be on the glass but behind this, so it's not going to affect the quality of the scope itself, and that will help align the scope back in place after we do that.
But if you're gonna take that corrector plate off, you have some Allen wrenches.
We
You're
won't,
gonna need to take those.
I
You're
got
gonna
it
have
in
to
the
take
car.
this.
it's all, the two, well, these guys are all screws. Well, no, these, the
Those are
tubes
Allen
here,
wrenches, aren't they?
yeah, these guys are Allen wrenches, and yeah, I've actually got Allen wrenches here. Not completely sold, and I'm gonna have to remove the thing. I might try and, part of me wants to say that if I pull the screws in part way, just so that it attaches, I can just use that and see if I can pull a little bit. But this guy's on here pretty damn good. The thought is if I can turn it a little bit, we might actually get some torque going on.
What about a little meat on it?
That's,
Careful, don't want to damage the lens, so.
yeah, the main thing is I don't want to crack the lens. And I've done this before, I've just not done this on one of these guys.
Well, it's no more fragile than plate glass on a window, but it's still, you gotta be careful. Plate glass breaks, it's all that.
This is the, and actually if you go to the manufacturer's website and you look for instructions on how to remove the corrector plate, the first thing you'll see is the sign, don't.
Yeah, they
But-
want you to send it back to the factory.
But yeah, and mind you, if you have to end up sending these guys to the factory, it's a real pain, especially if you don't have the original boxes. So this guy, it's so tempting that I can actually, I can see the glue between the lens and this other guy. So yeah, I think we're probably going to have to apply some heat and maybe even a knife or something, but more likely than not, we're just going to take the entire front end off because I don't want to mess with this anymore. It's the same thing with the old design of the secondary. because normally you can pull the secondary out, so you're not even worried about that. You get the glass underneath, etc., etc. Put the guy back in later, and it's fine. But this guy, when you unscrew this fellow, it's designed so that the two pieces are actually compressed together. So if you unscrew the front, the inside falls out.
Oh, no.
So I started to unscrew this. I realized it was coming in, and put it carefully back together. Which is, the newer ones are designed a lot differently than that. You can actually, the screw is on the inside. You unscrew it, you pull the entire mirror assembly out. Which makes for really, really cool things you can do, like hyperstars. You can buy a kit to convert this to a hyperstar compatible for an obscene amount of money. Which basically just means you take the thing off, you pull the mirrors apart, and then you put them back together using their equipment. Which is cool, but we're not really going to do that. And then, unless somebody wants to donate a 925 hyperstar, camera, in which case we'll honestly consider it.
I guess the moral of the story is prevention.
The moral of the story is definitely prevention. Store your scopes in an inside climate conditioned place where it's not going to collect mildew or spiders or anything like that. Cap the scope at both ends before you're going to store it for a long period of time. There's some desiccant tabs in there if you're going to store it for a long period of time.
There's I forget the name of the company that does it. It's a silvery looking cover for your scope. You know what I'm talking about? They make two.
Yeah,
there's one that's real thin, and there's another one that's thick for out in the field.
Yeah.
And those work extremely well to, protect your scope when you're in the field.
Yeah, it was a
But
thing I
you
mentioned.
still can get dew on it.
Yeah.
And you got to put it on without the dew on it.
Well, I mean, if anybody goes to, some of the star parties, I always tell people take their scopes into their tent. But you're going to be out under the sun, under the heat, and it's going to cause issues. I mean, you're going to have to wait for it to acclimate at night. But that risk of...
Yeah, I actually ended up doing that. We had a little minor star party, or an outreach that lasted a couple of days, and we left the scopes over the field, and we had some emergency blankets we threw over them, and yeah, that really, it dewed up pretty fast. During the afternoon sun, it really heats up under those blankets, and you take it off at night, and you have to wait along.
So they sell reflective, really shiny covers to drape over scopes. I remember Okitex, they were selling them. So I picked up one for my dog.
Yeah, and mine too. I've seen plenty of pictures of the guys up in Michigan and whatnot that leave their scopes outside in a foot of snow covered in one of those things, and I would not go like
Snow is dry.
The snow is...
The humidity can be very low, so if it's cold enough.
Okay.
I've been there.
I still
hate
wouldn't.
it, but it's,
I still wouldn't do it if I was going to have a scope that was. I don't leave in yard scopes. I don't have an observatory.
by the way, but is that
What
cold?
An outside scope.
Don't let with those northerners tell you to leak the scope.
Yeah, no. And mind you, that's exactly the first thing I would do.
Minus
is I would
20,
walk
it's
outside.
still get stuck.
I mean, that's a good point, though. People that have pods, outdoor observatories, permanent, whether it's pier mounted or whatnot, what to do when you've got a permanently mounted scope, Sean?
Yeah. I'm really not sure. Like if you got a permanently mounted scope, you don't have to worry about it so much because it's protected from the elements. It's going to cool down as the outside cools down. It's going to heat up as the
And
outside.
see, I went to the beach trade. Have an air conditioning heating system.
Yeah, and if
In
you
the
get
dome.
really, really big like the
In
one
the
upstairs,
dome.
you have a
I'm going to tell you
dehumidifier.
something I discovered. It's really cool in the summer. You open up the dome and leave the AC on, and guess what? You don't need two currents going that way. They're going down toward the ground. So even though my hot top is pretty sweaty, my feet stay nice.
Okay, so I think that's pretty much the end of the tech demo. If, unless we've got, we'll entertain more questions, I guess.
Are we going to have a part 2 on this after you can figure out how to get it?
Yeah, if we have the part 2, then the only thing left to do.
Running over something.
Yeah. So the only thing left to do is if we pull out the corrector plate, then we basically clean the inside the exact same way we clean the outside. Only afterwards you have to put the plate back in. The main thing, it's simple to do. Once you've removed this cowling, there are going to be two little cardboard things that separate the metal from the glass. You mark those guys in the right position so that you can put them back to the place where you were, pull those out, pull the entire mirror, the SCT assembly out, flip it around. The trick is having somebody hold the thing so that you can clean the thing from the other side, from one side, or lay it flat and then just do it that way. And then putting the thing back together. The follow-up to this would be, once you pull the corrector assembly, you really can't get around collimating the scope. And so the next thing that we would want to do is to actually learn how to collimate the scope, which is not as difficult as it seems. There are 3 screws right here on the front, and it works in that sense exactly like the regular reflector that you would have. Yeah, this is the...
Yeah, I see it now. I just was seeing if they had put in, was it Bob's knobs?
No, they haven't put in Bob's knobs. Bob's knobs are basically a great thing. I put them on my Newtonian, and it makes things just that much faster for collimating a secondary mirror. But what they are is they're longer versions, the exact same screws that are in there now, but they're knurled on one end. So you don't have to use a screwdriver to move them around. You can just reach around, so you can actually look through the eyepieces and things like that. And it makes things a ton easier. You'd think, well, you can do this very easily with a screw, or with a screwdriver. No, it is so much nicer if you've got some knobs and you can do it by hand and actually feel it. Yeah. It's much easier, and once you do that to your new, but the thing is that everybody just sort of jokes online is that these reputable company called there's a product called Bob's Knobs that sells these guys all in one. You exact size, you remove them, you put them back in, perfect. It costs you something like $30. But people keep coming online. Well, these are M2 screws. You can buy an M2 that's knurled on one end that's 30 millimeters long. That'll fit the bill for like 45 cents a piece from a hardware store. You can save yourself a lot of money. But if you don't know the right size screw, then you get confused. And actually, finding knurled screws, if you go to a hardware store and say, hey, I need a 30 millimeter knurled M2, they'll look at you from the front. I've done it, so
I really do suggest that if anybody has serious problems with the scope, they're not sure, they should go online and look at Company 7.
Company 7.
They've been around for years, and one of their specialties is that they have a shop to fix scopes. They've taken classic scopes and brought them up to, working beautifully. And they also do some work for NASA. But they also sell telescopes. If you order through them for a little extra, of course, they will be delivered to their shop. This is their ad now. And they will actually go through and recollimate if they need to, check that the optics are proper before this goes on to you. I don't know where the disclaimer is.
Well, I'm a little bit. I would be a little weary of anybody that offers to collimate my scope and then UPS it the results to me.
Well, that's what I'm worried about. It's UPS or FedEx.
They can hand deliver it, but I don't believe I've ever gotten a UPS box that wasn't crushed on one side.
Go online and just check what they say, and they have a phone number. You can call them and ask them about this scope, what what you should or shouldn't do.
Yeah, and I think. Mind you, I've already performed the same procedure with the old 10-inch Schmidt Newt that we had in the closet for ages.
Newt?
Schmidt Newt, which is
I know what it is.
It's a fresh level of hell is what it is. Because the collimating of this guy is not only dependent on the orientation of the corrector plate, but it's also the select deposits of the mirror. The secondary mirror has to be evenly between the two.
There should be a merit badge for you if you did that one.
Well, I've got it, and I did clean it, and I did suffer quite a bit. And visually it looks fine, but photographically everything's off to one side. And I know that basically I know how to fix it. I just don't want to because it's a lot of work. And it involves getting a level to make sure the tube is evenly spaced between here and here and here and here, finding the exact location, finding the exact push down, etc., etc.
Which,
You don't have to do all that with this. This, you just have to make sure the corrector plate's put back on.
I wish Carter Watson was still here because he built scopes, including he built his own Schmidt Newt.
Wow.
And he won, he built a truss sprinkler, 12-inch. Absolutely the most beautiful image you've ever seen of M42.
I was out the other night and remembered exactly that for the first time I was just sort of slewing around and checking out some of the stuff in Sagittarius before I closed up for the night, and I happen to have an O3 filter with me. And yeah, filters really are the way to go when you're looking at some things. The Lucifer Nebula is just beautiful to go over with any size. It's amazing. It's photographic.
If y'all get really bored, I'll tell you a couple stories about some of our early members. And he was one of the more interesting ones.
We're okay. So I think at this point, the tech demo's gone, and we've really run over budget, and we must be boring the people that are at home to their minds. So we're going to go ahead and close the YouTube video and thank everybody for coming and watching our attempts to clean the inside the SET, and definitely the useful information on how to clean the outside of the SET and how not to take something apart if you're not comfortable with how to do it, which is important. We're not children, and we don't break things just to find out how they work anymore. All right, thank you all so much for coming, and we're going to turn off the online video, I think.